So, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the YCPA podcast. My name is Pierre, I'm Director of Memberships at YCPA, and I'm here with Jia today, expert in insurances and also a very strong supporter of YCPA. So, before we start the podcast, we'd like to give a special shout out to Ocha for letting us record this episode at their shop. For those who know Ocha, you probably know them for their famous boba and mochi donuts, but Ocha is much more than just that. They are an embodiment of passion, flavor, culture, and innovation. Feel free to visit the shop located in 1651 St. Catherine in downtown Montreal. So, welcome, Jia.
Thank you, Pierre.
So, before we start and go through this whole journey about you and your adventure and your career advancement, maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself?
So, long story short, it's been 22 years since I came to Canada. Family reunion with my family. So originally I came from Guangzhou, China. So we speak, Cantonese and Mandarin. But little did I know that, when I first arrived at Canada to the province of Quebec, I was like, the English looked a bit different. No, it's actually French. So, end up having to, learn the language, understanding the culture. Then about 10 years ago, I started this amazing career of financial services in the sector of insurance because of a baby of my mentor. Because at that time, she just got married, and like 3 months later, she told me she's pregnant, obviously. And it's like, you might want to take care of part of my client while I'm gone. So that's how I started the field. Then after that, the shorter version of it, I'm not going to here to talk about my whole CV. That's not the point. I work in a branch. I become self-employed, and I work in the branch as the back-end supporter. Then I left the insurance side to work in the bank a little bit. Went back to the wholesaling, the channel of the insurance. Then last year, for the whole year, I was working for IROC firm. For those who know, is one of the investment path for one of the investment guy. As his insurance specialist. Then as we speak for a month now, I already started my own business. It's called Service Financier Helix. So, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Short version of it.
So, from my understanding, you immigrated here in Canada when you were younger.
Yeah.
And you talked about like this transition into insurances and these services, but like, what did you studying and how did it transition into that part of your career?
Funny enough, it's related, but not in a sense. What do I mean by that? So back in the day, my CJAP degree was in science, pure and applied. So I was a big math guy. For people who watch this, who knew me for like 2 decades ago, maybe. I used to be a math tutor part-time.
I see.
At Kumon, those who know Kumon. So, I'm a big math guy in my Vanny days.
In your Vanny days?
In my Vanny day on the 5th floor, as a tutor also. I did all that. I did like I said, I did my CJAP degree in science. I did my university degree in statistics, specialization in statistics. For those who don't know, is like a few extra courses on top of a major. So specialize in statistics. So we do a lot of statistic course, mathematics course, pure mathematics course, number theory. So you're like, okay, how does that has nothing to do with insurance? But there's also a part that does because because I graduated in Concordia. So in Concordia, we also have the actuarial program.
Yes.
Yes. So actuarial classes and math classes, we have some joint statistic and mathematical classes together. So at that time, I was like, I want to start in statistics and maybe eventually I can transfer into actuarial. Not to mention,
I see.
back in 2010, if I remember, kind of exposing my age now. I did do my first actuarial exam and I passed.
I see.
Yeah, so then, but the reality really kicks in when you start doing the second and third exam. Trust me, it's really hard.
Okay.
Then maybe it's not something that I want to pursue. Not that it's not the right thing to do. It's just maybe it's not for me.
I
right?
see. I see. But I have this question for you. So basically, you're saying your degrees and your studies were very like math and stats focused, right?
Correct.
And then you transitioned into the insurances field.
Right.
But from my understanding, in the insurances field, there's also this part where you need to do some business development. We need to talk to clients,
Right.
right? And so I'm wondering, in this context, like how did the fact that you speak Mandarin, do you speak Cantonese as well?
That also. So I come from the southern part of mainland
Right.
China, so the city of Guangzhou, for those who
From
know.
Guangzhou.
So at the very young age of like 6 or 7, the whole class is bilingual because at home we speak Cantonese.
So
but
you
in
speak
class Mandarin.
you speak Mandarin, Cantonese, French, and English, right?
Correct.
So how did all of this and also your cultural background help you to develop like your career?
The better question is how does all this make sense inside
Yeah, how
our
does it-
brain and our life?
And how does it make sense to you here in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada? You know?
Right. So there's the business side, but there's the cultural side. The business side is the cultural side first. Maybe I can say the cultural side is that we can help the other community and the other culture to understand us because I am fortunate enough to have exposure in the mainstream market and the mainstream community, and I also have the background of knowing my Cantonese people, my Mandarin speaking community. I understand both and I'm able to help each side to understand each other. That's fortunate. On the business side, as part of my niche, the fact that I can speak the language helped me to gain exposure to, for example, the Cantonese and Mandarin speaking professional in my specific field, the insurance agent, investment advisor, to help them, to support them in their language. Not that they don't speak French or English, not that. They can read, they do their exam, they can attend all kind of training possible.
Yeah.
That's doable on a daily basis and they're doing it. But they feel more comfortable, and same to the client, they feel more comfortable to talk to someone in their mother tongue.
Right. Right.
So that really helped me to grow my career as an individual because they also tell me, okay, not because I speak the language, it's because I'm there for them when it's needed.
Yeah. But I think there's also the part where being there for them is also a cultural thing. In the way that you speak to them, in the way that you act with them, that other people that are not like you wouldn't be able to even comprehend, right?
Right. So one thing, it came like about 3-4 years ago into my, now I will call career, but before that I would say it's a job.
Right.
There's nothing romantic about it. But at some point you realize, okay, maybe this is the career. Then I will build myself around this career. How do I make myself better on a daily basis? One thing being available, being on time, how to make sure the experience, and by experience I mean, for example, this, how do I make the podcast experience better? How do I make sure my service, I wouldn't say excellent because I don't think I'm there, not there yet, but great.
Right.
When someone approach me, they know I'm reliable. They know even though I might not have the answer right away, but I can find the resources for them.
I see.
Right.
So there's this feeling of trust that you're talking about, but like from your experience, like can you give the audience and even me some advices or like suggestions on concrete or like your top three most important things in your career that helped you get to where you are today.
So a brief idea I was just sharing is you have to look at yourself. So when you first started, so suppose I give an advice to my younger self who just get out of school like 10 years ago. So if I look back, how can I do better, right? So of course, the first 2 3 years, you have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
Same applied to me. That's exactly what happened to me. I have no idea what I was doing. I just started this field. It just happened like that. I was taking care of a block of client of someone else. When I look at a formula, when I look at a form, when I look at all the paperwork, I have no idea what it means.
Okay.
So the first 2 3 years, one thing, if I go back to my younger self, I'll tell him, okay, yeah, you don't know, but ask the question. There's no good or bad question, but tell them you don't know, but you really want to learn about it. It's the passion and the willingness to learn about the process inside out. I really come much later, and like I said, it only came about 4 years ago. I realized that this is the right way and right path to take. So learn the process inside out, whatever industry you're in, number one. Number two is consider yourself that project you want to build. Again, regardless,
I see.
whichever industry you're in, how can I get better on a daily basis? For those who might know, there's a book called Atomic Habit. One of the key concepts is, how can you get 1% better on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Which gives you, I believe, 37 times better on a yearly basis, something
It's
like that.
Compound interest. But
Correct.
on yourself.
Compound interest, but on yourself. So we're not even talking about investment here, right?
Right.
We are the investment itself.
Yeah.
So suppose I didn't respond an email in a way that I like. When it comes to a similar situation next day, next time around, how can I better approach and better tackle the situations?
I see.
When I don't know an Excel shortcut, how can I remember it better so next time I don't spend too much time on the same process that I could have done more efficiently, right? Process and constantly refine yourself. And last thing is, this is the hard one. I'm still working on it. Work-life balance.
Work-life balance?
Not to mention now that I'm my own boss. I was talking with Pierre earlier today. He's like, you're your own boss. Like, why are you so stressed about it? Well, yeah, with the unlimited amount of freedom comes with unlimited amount of responsibility. But I also have to remind myself, I work hard so that I have a good life. So I should enjoy the life part of it, right?
Exactly.
So constantly looking for a balance.
Right.
Make sure it's not just about the work itself.
I see. Okay, so we talked a bit about like your early career. You gave us some of your advices, and I want to transition to the entrepreneurship part.
Yeah.
But before we do this, I think the audience needs to understand a bit of the nitty-gritty of what you are actually doing, because the insurances field is so large, it's so broad. And me, before talking to you, I had no idea that it was basically like products and services. So can you give like a bit more detail on what you were actually doing before transitioning to being an entrepreneur?
Okay, so when I first started as a career agent of Channel, on a daily basis, what we do is, calling the client, propose to them what kind of solution that fit them. Like a better way to say it is selling a product. Then later on, they realize I'm a good trainer because I'm good at showing people how to do things. Because I also was a math tutor for almost a decade. So they're like, instead of being a seller, which I'm not a very good closer at that time, they're like, maybe you can show people how things are done. Mm-hmm. So then I retouched my skill on being a trainer. Then eventually I went back to the front line, working at a bank. And then later on, like I said, working in the wholesale channel. What wholesale channel mean in our world is there are different brokerages with the independent broker in our field. meaning that they can sell any brand they like listed, and in my field, the life and health insurance in Canada. They can choose any brand they like to sell. And as a wholesaler, in my case, an internal wholesaler in-house, I'm there to show them the brand that I offer and what are the product, what are the process, what are the strategy and pricing, and how to build a price to show to the end client, so their client. So my client's the broker,
Yeah, your client's a broker.
but the goal is for them to be able to understand the inside out, the A to Z for their end client when they have to present the solution,
All right.
like a better way.
Yeah, I see. And what do you think were like the criterias that you were looking for, like in that field, or like, you were training people? What were some of the things that you would be looking for in those person?
By those people, I mean the advisor. A good advisor should be, and this is something that I'm starting to do, is because in our field because we're in financial services, the work is services and not financial product, right?
Right. Okay. So there's a difference between a product and a service.
Right. So at some point we have to realize we're giving a service and the service comes with a product and not the other around. That's how I see it. How do I know when I'm training or when I'm touching base with a good advisor versus someone has not realizing it yet?
Mhm.
Is someone who treat their client as a relationship. So
Right.
so the keyword here is client,
Client.
not customer.
I see.
So is it a relationship or a transaction? That makes it different, right?
Okay.
So what do I mean by that is, again, the work is services. The work is intangible because the product we actually sell is not something we see until the policy booklet at the end, for those who know, or someone who has either an individual policy or group policy booklet from your company. Until you get the booklet, you don't see anything. It's basically a commitment number and someone who call you on the phone and an email
I see.
that might not know me yet, right?
Mhm.
So the trust is important, the knowledge is important, and you have to show to either your client or your broker that you're professional and reliable and knowledgeable.
And
Right.
knowledgeable.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we take a lot, like even myself, I take a lot of time to constantly studying the newest trend and knowledge in
Mhm.
our market, in our niche, and also what is out there in the market. I work in insurance. Maybe people think interest rate doesn't bother me. No, it does, right? Little things like that. Every
Yeah.
day I have to keep myself up to date.
I see. I see. And I didn't know necessarily all of this about you, right? Because it's like we did talk a lot, but like basically you transitioned from someone who's very technical to getting into this relationship type of mindset.
Yeah.
And I guess throughout these years of knowledge, you understood that you could probably start something of your own, right?
Right.
You could be an entrepreneur, you could be a business owner. Tell us, like, how did it happen? Why did it happen?
So at some point, especially the last 4 or 5 years, like I've been saying, slowly I built my knowledge based on, the product, the strategy, the advice that clients should be getting, advice, that's what adds value. At some point, I'm like, how can I show it to more people?
Mm-hmm.
The question comes to my mind is, what if I do it myself?
Yeah.
Can I do the same? Am I ready yet? Obviously, at the first 2-3 years, was like, obviously not, because, I don't know the operational side, inside out.
Mhm.
In our field, there's a lot of, this is where we get the technical, the underwriting side, how can we evaluate insurance file inside out, all that, or reinsurance, Don't worry about it. Feel free to look it up online. What I
Yeah.
meant by all that, it's very technical. I don't know any of those when I first started this
Yeah.
path, but given my knowledge, given all the company I had the privilege to work with, people taught me a lot. So along the way, I'm like, maybe one day I can do it myself.
Okay. So you already had this kind of thought.
In mind that
Yeah.
I knew one day, if the time's right,
Yeah.
I will run my own firm
Okay.
because I want to able to own the process inside out by myself, so
Right.
I can serve people the way and the method I present and I refined it
I
already.
see. But like, what? How did you make the jump? Like, why? When did you decide it's time?
Funny enough, so we mentioned that when I first started the career is because of a baby.
Yeah. Right.
My mentor, she was pregnant, so I have to take care of her block. So recently, for the last 6, 7, 8 months, especially in summer, for those who notice, when you open your social media, Facebook, Instagram,
Uh-huh.
and LinkedIn, I don't know
LinkedIn.
why, all you see is weddings,
Yeah.
pregnancy,
Yeah.
announcements of gender,
Yeah.
starting a new business.
Right. Right.
Right, so that's when it really hits me. It's like, okay, people around my age, 30 plus, are really, especially even my cousins just had her wedding in June also. So I knew, okay, maybe it's time, because my circle and people around me start having the responsibility on their shoulder,
Okay.
good or bad, hopefully good,
Yeah.
that they need the support they need.
Mm-hmm.
They need someone to give them the advice that they deserve. That's when it really hits me, okay, maybe it's time. Then obviously I talk to people around me who are in the field and ask them their advice. Okay, what do you think of me starting on my own? And so far the feedback are positive.
Okay.
Otherwise I wouldn't be here today. And also I am a guy with mathematics and statistics background. Obviously, I calculate my risk.
Right.
So after I calculate my risk, after I talk to all the potential collaborators, they're like, go for it. Do your company registrations and licensing attachment and all that. We'll just wait for you to be operational.
I see. Okay. And so it seems like all of this was for you was somehow calculated. It was a risk, but being in the insurance field and being a specialist and an expert, it wasn't that much of a risk for you. But
Calculate the risk.
it was calculated, right? But like, have you were there any challenges or like stuff that you had to overcome that were maybe not like as predictable as you thought?
So a lot of people think, because I'm 100% owner of my own, for this business, I can say I am the sole owner.
Yeah.
And
You're saying for this business because there's more than just this business, right?
we cannot talk about it yet.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it.
We
Yeah.
cannot talk about it yet. But let's say for this business, I'm the sole owner. Before I register and before I do all the paperwork, I was thinking this is more like a solo player arcade game.
Yeah.
It's not. It's really a multiplayer. There's a lot of collaboration. Example, daily challenges. I have to pick which bank to deal with, why, who has the better offer versus another, how do I pay myself, tax-wise, and also like, different registration, because, in our field, there's, the liability coverage that I have to do 2-layer for my firm and for myself. All this was not foreseen. I mean, I knew, but when it comes to doing it myself, it's completely different ballgame,
I see.
right? Then how to find the prospect client. Yes, I knew them already, but now I approach them as a business will be like a different angle. And then eventually, polish my social media marketing, creating the content, schedule them. All this cannot be done easily. It takes time, takes planning.
I see.
right?
But like
Daily
you're
challenges.
starting out now, so like how do you manage this? Like what does, for example, what does a day as an insurance provider and entrepreneur looks like?
So funny enough, you asked that. So the first 2 week, my first week was the week of July 2nd. I don't know when would this video be out. The first
2024, July 2nd, 2024, right?
Oh, yeah, July 2nd, 2024.
Yeah.
So the first 2 week, honestly, I don't have a schedule.
Yeah.
So every day I wake up like, okay, what did I do today?
Okay.
A bit of like not knowing where I'm going.
Yeah.
At some point at the third week, I'm like, okay, this is not working out because like I'm not organized.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a schedule to follow.
Yeah.
I don't even write down anything on my agenda. It's not working out. So
Right.
I start creating time block on my Google Calendar.
Right.
You know, who should I meet? Who should I call the next day, next week, and next months to go?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm starting to slowly to have a structure.
I see.
And so far it's working fine. So
It's
that's
working
how
fine.
I organize myself. As for your question, how's the day-to-day look like?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of I'm a bit of like I wear all the hat, I don't have a typical day. Every day looks different.
Exactly. Exactly.
Good and bad. Good
Yeah.
is every day is different, so it's challenging, it's fun because it won't repeat itself and it will never repeat itself. Bad is like sometimes spontaneously something could happen. For example, yesterday I realized that next week I have to go to Toronto for this
Right.
trip.
Right. But
Right?
at the same times that it's spontaneous, it's also very exciting for you, right?
Yeah.
Right?
So example, next week I'm watching like a Blue Jays games.
Yeah.
And this is a fun part that people see. But there's the part that we like. Sometimes I might need to stay late to like 9 or 10 o'clock
Yeah.
at night to talk to like a collaborator because their kid fell asleep.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the other side because if I scroll down my calendar, I think I showed you or someone else earlier today that it's not a 9 to 5. It's maybe like a 6 to 9, but we're talking about AM to PM.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
So there's the opposite extreme. It could be challenging in terms of mental stamina, physical stamina.
And like this business that you just started, is it okay if you name it? Is it okay to?
Yeah, I think I just did. It's Service Financier Helix.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you specialize in some type of insurances or like what's your value proposition there?
I would say I'm a generalist, but if I have to name one, it will be. So we have two main business. There's the individual life and health service insurance coverage.
Yeah.
But there's also the group benefit and savings. So for a small company, for example, here, Ocha or any restaurant,
Right.
or any typical company, we can provide the services to show them the idea of owning a group benefit for the employee.
I see.
And also to provide the as an option to the owner to provide benefit to the employee, of course. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, Ja, thank you very much for that part. I want to transition into some of your involvement in the YCPA because for the audience that don't know Ja, he's very, very involved with us in our organization, and it's a pleasure to have you. So tell us, how did you get to know the YCPA? Like, how did it start?
So I knew YCPA for many, many, many years.
Many, many years.
Many, many, many years. Even since I graduated,
Right.
I wasn't involved back then, but especially the last 2 years. Funny enough, you asked that because the first event that my previous company was decided to sponsor was the Lunar New Year,
Exactly.
which was organized by none other than Pierre himself.
Yeah.
With
obviously the rest of the team, but I was the head of that.
2023, was it?
Yeah, 2023. It was
Yes.
the first year doing that event.
Yeah. So at that time, we were looking at what kind of event we can, and obviously I'm not talking about me, talking about my previous owner,
Right.
previous employer, sorry. we're looking at different option and exposure to help the community. And I said, we can think about YCPA, because at that time I know one of the former board member. So I
Okay.
communicate with her, and she said, you can talk to the current board, and she gave me the contact information. So I talked to the president, Felicia, and
Yeah.
Felicia said, you can communicate with Pierre and all that. So that's how it started. Then we also supported the Occupy 2023, obviously the Occupy this year.
Mm-hmm.
What else? The wellness event.
Some wellness, some leadership events as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were very, very involved in the YCPA, but my question for you is like, why did you get involved? So like you did get involved, but like,
Correct.
what was your reason?
At some point when you develop your career, and if I can give like a fourth advice, if possible, is it's good to focus on yourself. But I thought back, and when I was younger, when I first started the career, someone else helped me to build my career.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. And the advice that my mentor told me, she said, and I quote, "You don't have to thank me. The best thing you can do is to give back
Right.
when you have the capability to do so."
I understand.
That's the simple answer. So about a years ago or 2 years ago, I think it's about time. So, I use my influence within those firms that I work with, and told them, YCPA is a good source to, put in the budget to, not only gain the exposure for the business, but also to help the young professional to get the resources they need, that
Yeah.
they deserve.
And so far,
advice,
like,
of course.
do you feel like it was worth your time? It was worth your involvement?
Certainly.
Certainly, yeah. All right, I have this other question because you sponsored OB. You sponsored OB in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also sponsored OB in 2024, or at least.
I think the OB 2023 was a joint sponsorship
Yeah.
between one of my former firm and one of the brokerage we worked together with,
Okay.
where 2024 was on my own.
On your own, right? And so like, can you describe your experience in both OBs? They're certainly different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Can you talk about this?
I believe, if I can say, every year is getting better and better. There's more exposure. There's more different item in it, and I really see the evolution of YCPA, especially the last 2 years. See, like for the member, especially we all see like there's more event, but different types of event
Right.
for different kind of activity. Not only physical activity in the summer, sports,
Mm-hmm.
love it. Unfortunately, I cannot go
Yeah.
because I'm preparing my own race.
Yeah.
I want to save my own energy. We can talk about that
Yeah.
on a separate channel.
Yeah.
There's the networking event.
Right.
Another one coming up in September. But there's also those who for member exclusive event, which is new this
Yeah.
year. So if we talk about like what are the difference between the two OB, Occupy, for those who don't know, it's not just the two Occupy, it's throughout the whole process, the last 2 years for everyone who observe from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
There's more and more events for different category of type of activity.
So from what I'm hearing,
not just two events, if I can answer
Exactly.
the question better.
So you're saying it's not just the event. The event is basically fueling the rest of the year at YCPA, right? And
to
that's the difference
bring
you see.
in, because Occupy is obviously the biggest event.
Yeah, it's the biggest event.
To bring in the audience to the YCPA community, but without the other event throughout the year,
Mm-hmm.
it won't help. right? So
Right.
I really see the vision really works out, and the mission is to provide more and more different type of resources to the young professional. So
Awesome.
it all makes sense if I understood it properly.
I think you do get some of what we're doing. Yeah. We're getting closer to like our closing, but do you have? I still have two questions and one action that I need you to do. Okay. So my first question is: do you have any words for future generations, for the next people that might be you or me?
One thing I can say is it's okay to not knowing what you're doing yet, but at least focus on your day to day. Get better at what you do if you can, and try to find what you're passionate about. It might not come right away, but trust me, it will come. Took me 5 years.
It took you 5 years.
Took me five. I would say 7 realistically, but took me a long time. I didn't realize what I want to do right away when I first started working. So
you kept
patient.
Going, right? Be patient. All right, and you're certainly one of like a very very ambitious guy. But like, can you give the audience like your future ambitions? What are your next goals?
So in our field, we have to do different kind of certification and licensing. One of the field that's recognized in our community is obviously the financial planning title. In Quebec is planificateur financier.
Yeah.
That's my next thing because I'm already working on the title already. And on top of that, obviously Helix will not only be a Quebec firm, we want to be a Canadian firm.
We want to expand.
Who practice in multiple provinces. It might be me to begin, but we're also working on the Ontario licensing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Ja, thank you very much for taking this time with us. My last action for you
Thank you.
is, do you want to plug in some of your socials so people can either follow you, Service Helix?
So for those who would like to communicate with me for any advice or maybe just to have a coffee chat or career development discussion, doesn't necessarily have to do what I do professionally. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So my full name is Jia Hao Yi.
Right.
And
we'll write it on the
profile
screen.
picture is the guy with glasses.
It's a guy with glasses.
And we also have an Instagram account on the Helix side, so it's FS Helix, so FSHELIX.
Yeah.
That's the only account available, should be there. For now, there's not much content, but hopefully when the video is up, I started already some marketable content. I have to give myself target to work on, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ja.
Thank you, Pia.